I live in Namibia, but I was born in Angola. I was born in a refugee camp in Angola, which was for SWAPO, Southwest Africa People's Organization. It is a party that was created in the 60s by our parents because of the apartheid regime that was ruling Namibia at the time. According to the UN, Namibia was supposed to get its independence in the 60s, but that did not happen because the South African regime wanted to keep Namibia under its fists. So that is when our parents decided to go into exile. They did military training. They had camps in Angola, Zambia, Tanzania. They did the training in Egypt, Russia, and they were fighting on the front. So my parents left for Angola. My father led the resistance. He was one of the 5 generals who was actually leading the resistance. My mother was just a simple girl living in the refugee camps. And in 1978, we had a massacre on the 4th of May in Ikasenga refugee camp in Angola, where the South African army went to bomb a camp. So there were lots of children that were motherless, parents, well, they became orphans in one day. And then East Germany, they then decided to take on the youngest ones. And some of them went to Cuba, but they were the older ones, like the teenagers that went to Cuba, others went to Russia, and the youngest ones that went to East Germany. I joined the program in 1985. So I grew up in East Germany.
Where in East Germany?
We were in Schwerin, Berlin actually, Kinderheim Berlin. That's where we were. It's
without your parents?
Yeah, we were just a lot of children.
And you have been 5 years old when you went there, when you got there?
Yeah, I was between 5 and 6. I can't remember. Yeah.
And you have been without your parents since that?
My father died when I was 2.
He died in the struggle?
Yeah, my father died in the struggle when I was 2 years old, and I stopped living with my mother when I was 3 years old. And yeah, so we were 500 children. We had some caretakers, German and Namibian caretakers, and the Namibians were just making sure that we kept the language, understood our own culture, background, where we came from. And yeah, I mean, many people get shocked when we say, I mean, I only found out when my mother is when I was 11 years old. And for us, it was totally normal. When you don't know something, you don't know it. You cannot relate to it. And this is exactly the same way people get shocked that our parents were not there, but it was normal for us. It wasn't abnormal in any way.
And was it nice for you to grow up with so many children?
In the camps already, we were always amongst kids. In Angola.
The refugee camp.
Yeah, yes. We were always just children. It's the younger children with the older children. We didn't even know who our parents were. And I think in a way it was also a way of protecting the children. Mm-hmm. Like in East Germany, we had different names, different birth dates.
Different names. What was your name?
My name was just Maria.
Okay.
Ina Maria, but it was just Maria. Instead of Shikongo, I used my father's surname, Pondo. So I only discovered who I was when I came to Namibia in 1990. Yeah.
You discovered who you are when you came to Namibia in 1990?
Yeah, I was 11 years old. I was Ina Maria Shikongo, and I had a different birth date to the one that I had in East Germany.
And then you got to know who your parents have been more.
Who my mother was, yeah. My father, I would always hear about him because He was he was one of the top 5 generals in the liberation struggle. So people literally worship him to this day still. But I was always closer to my father for some reason than to my mom. I don't know why. I guess it's spirit, because he's the one that left, and it's, spirit is within me today. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And maybe it's better to put your glasses more up, because that we can see your eyes when you talk.
I can also take them off.
How you like it, as you like it. It's just
okay. Yeah.
As
We
you
started
like
that.
it, as you like it.
No, we started like this. It's okay.
Okay. So growing up in DDR was.
We lived in a castle. Our government had very tight relationships to ReconAfrica himself. So we were actually quite privileged compared to a lot of people in East Germany. We didn't know at the time. We only found that out much later, afterwards. And it was actually a fun time. Obviously, we had military training and all of that. The older ones, they got to shoot real guns. But we were being prepared for a war.
Okay.
So
for the war in
Angola, we didn't know that independence was going to come. So we were being prepared for a war.
Okay.
You know, you are there to do your thing. You study, you're learning, but at the same time, you also need to know how to survive in the bush. So we were being brought up as to become the next generation of the next leaders, basically. But you had to know everything. You had to be educated, but you also had to know how to survive on the battlefield.
And this is what they taught you in DDR?
Yes. Yeah.
So you lived in outside regions and slept there and tents or?
No. We slept in a castle.
Okay.
We had very normal lives, but when it came to military training, we would go into the forest, and then we would do the training there as children. It was very normal for us. It wasn't abnormal at all. Yeah.
And later then, when you became grown up and you went to Namibia?
When I was 11 years old, after the wall fell, after the Cold War,
89.
dispersed. No, yes, but we left in 1990.
1990.
So we got to live the transition, like the coming in of the plastic products within East Germany, the Bravo magazine that we didn't have before. We had access to music, like breakdancing. We immediately connected to Black American music, whereas before it was, Olaf Berger. Hi, Sazama,
He's a DDR singer.
Yes,
okay,
yeah, Olaf Berger. So we all knew him. So we had access to different styles of music, of expression. And then we went back, and then we went to Namibia.
And how then did you become, shall we say, an activist, or how do you a political
activist? I think my upbringing in East Germany had a big role to play with it, because we were taught to be anti-capitalists already. Shunting from a young age, down capitalism, down the whole capitalist system. And so the upbringing within SWAPO ideologies, and also having lived in a refugee camp, I was always an activist of some kind. I remember even as a child or as a teenager in Namibia, if there was something that was not right, I would be the one that would speak up and say, this is not right. So it has been part of me for a long time. It has been part of my upbringing, actually, it's my history shaped who I am today. And I used to work, well, I started doing art as well when I went to university, because we don't have art in Namibian schools. So I started at the University of Namibia. I studied fashion design, and then later on I went to France, where I continued with my studies as a fashion designer. And but I never worked as a fashion designer because I don't like the way it works. It is unethical, even in terms of the chemicals that they use within the textiles, how they are exploiting people and land. So I was not okay with that. I told myself I'm not going to be part of this game. So I went to Namibia after my studies, and I was always doing jobs here and jobs there, but still doing my art, and it was always politically driven. I would always talk about subjects that touched me, like let's say abortion, women's rights, environmental rights, advocating for justice for everyone, not just for women or for the environment or for animals. So I was always an activist in that regard. And then we created a permaculture initiative with my colleagues, and we started teaching. Yeah, also because I must also go back a bit, is that I was teaching women how to make fashionable products, because we don't have a fashion school in Namibia, and not everyone has got access to do the fashion courses in the two institutions, which is the University of Namibia and the College of the Arts in Katutura. And but a lot of people know how to sew. So I wanted to just teach them how to read patterns, but also how to create collections using their own stories, using their own environments as inspiration. And like, for example, we would talk about women's rights, or I would ask them to tell stories about the villagers, and then we would see how we can how to integrate those within the garments so they can make them authentic. And in parallel to that, I was also teaching communities how to grow food. And when it comes to food, again, we are again talking about mass production, and vegetables are so expensive in Namibia. So when we come here, everyone is vegan. We are like, where's my meat? You know, I fully understand why here people are vegan. It's the way that the animals are brought up is really bad. And but also mainstream agriculture, it's again fossil fuels, fashion, fossil fuels, they're everywhere. So we were teaching people how to grow food in Namibia, because it is a very dry climate and the rainy seasons have become less, just like here, I found out. And so permaculture was really a good tool for us to teach people, also because there's a lot of materials that you can already communicate with people, that you don't have to recreate and redraw everything yourself, because everything is done for you. It's just putting it into context. We were also teaching schools. And so when the Fridays for Future movement started on this side, it totally inspired us as well, that we can bring in the subject of climate justice, because we were just talking about why you have to grow your own food. One, we have a problem with HIV/AIDS in Namibia, and people that are positive, they have to feed themselves in a certain way. But vegetables are not accessible. But meat is accessible because people have meat on their farms. You know? So it's just a matter of
accessibility.
Yes, but vegetables, we don't have the water, we don't have the rain, it's not our culture. We are hunter-gatherers.
I always hear the voices, but I don't see anything.
It's here. Yeah. So, so when the Fridays for Future movement started, we also created that platform so the schools and the youth that we work with can have a platform to express themselves. So even now, most of our activities in Namibia are centered around going to orphanages, schools that have feeding programs for children who can't feed themselves at home, so they have some fresh food at home. So we then also talk about how climate change is affecting them. What is it that they would like to see being changed within their communities? And the questions are all, like the responses are so amazing, because these children know exactly what's going on. They just don't have the platform to discuss these issues and to find solutions with people that are interested. So that is what we do, and we also do protests, Paris Agreement, and all of that. So basically, that's how I got into climate activism myself, because I'm an old woman, young old woman. Sorry.
And now you are in the moment on a travel through Germany with the Stop G7 Caravan.
Yes.
And you have a mission in a way, things that you tell to the German audience. What is it about?
Well, Namibia, like many countries that were previously colonized, have serious issues with what I call, and many call, neocolonialism today. We have institutions like the United Nations, this G7 conference now. Bonn is happening in preparation for COP27. And we make promises that we don't stick to. We can see even here this ground is dry. This is Germany, it's dry. For me as a Namibian, I find it scary. Also because I grew up in East Germany, and I was so happy to see that a lot of the forest is still there. But I also realized how dry one of the forests is, because we visited a forest that is busy being cut down so they can make for sand mining and for keys. And when I was there, I gave the people an example. Like, just stand there. Can you see how hot it is? Now stand underneath a tree. This is why you need to fight for this forest. That is why you need to save it, because it's there for a reason. It's there for a purpose. And what also shocked me is, because I remember in East Germany, in the forest, we used to take the moss. It was always this thick, and we used to take it from either from the rock or the trees, and then we would create a carpet, and then we would build our huts from the dead trees, and that would be like our beds or anything, like that is what we used to do. But when I was in Dresden, the moss was dry, it was crumbling. So climate change is also affecting you. I know you are happy that you have sunshine, but it's affecting you. It is affecting those people that are producing food at the moment in the global north. With us, we are living it already. We are used to droughts. We are used to them. And Namibia is a dry country. But we also have conferences like COP26, like now there was Stockholm plus 50, and people are just talking. How can we phase out from the fossil fuel industry? Because it's a proven fact that this activity is destroying the entire planet, the entire globe. With us, it is about human rights violations that are happening. Like now in Tanzania, the Maasais are being evicted from their ancestral land so they can put a touristic attraction park for the rich white families.
It's just happening in these times, in these days.
It is happening right now. and they are fighting back with bow and arrow. The government is using police to forcefully evict them so they can have this luxurious park, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And now in Namibia we have a ReconAfrica from Canada that has started drilling for oil.
So I read that they have the biggest finding of oil in the planet since many years.
It's a lie.
Namibia.
It's a lie.
It's not the biggest.
I don't know if it is the biggest, but ReconAfrica is a very small junior company, and people are saying that it is a stock exchange scam. Oil, geologists, they say there is no oil because of the sediments that are, the rock formation itself. So the specialists are saying there is no oil. The only thing that they can get out of there is gas. And for that they have to frack.
Not for oil.
Oil is because we started making noise about them doing fracking.
Yes.
So then they changed the narrative and said, no, we are drilling for oil.
Because they want to frack?
They want to frack.
I thought they want to frack the oil.
They want to frack the oil and the gas.
And the gas.
But the rock formation itself, the sediment, the basin itself, there is no oil, according to what the geologists are saying. So it's a stock exchange scam. Like, they didn't find any oil until now, but they've made over billions of dollars already in profits just from people investing in this company.
But there is gas.
Gas, it's easy to get gas from anywhere. You just have to frack, and then the gas will come. And what is worrisome for us is the fact that it's a biodiversity hotspot. Elephants, rhinos, cheetahs, wild dogs, but also our indigenous people, our San people, they live there. It's also our ancestral holy home. And now it's being sacrificed so people can have oil and gas on this side. The IPCC clearly states that we need to start phasing out from 2025. That's in 3 years, right? It's in 3 years. How are we going to do that if we are starting new oil projects? And now, if you look at what's happening in Ukraine, in Russia, now even Germany has asked Africa to start providing them with gas. Not oil, gas. EU, the same. The G7. They want our leaders to start providing them with this material resource that is literally killing the whole planet.
Although they know that this region will be completely destroyed.
They know it, but black lives don't matter. Indigenous lives don't matter. We are only talking about the war in Ukraine, but we are not talking about the conflicts that are happening in Mozambique, Cameroon. These are the new conflicts I'm talking about that you've not heard about. In Kenya, conflict right now. Tigray, Ethiopia. Now let's talk about the existing ones. Libya, Sudan, Congo. Over what? Resources. Again. And now they want to come with their gas projects. And we know when the fossil fuels invade our side of the world, they come with their guns and they come with their destruction. Who makes the guns? Countries of the G7. Even the war in Ukraine. Yes, Putin is cashing in, but so is NATO. So are the G7 countries, the ones who are producing the arms. You think that they are donating the arms to Ukraine? No. NATO is buying them from the producers, I suppose. But they are not being given for free. Nothing is for free here.
And these conflicts, what you talked about before, which are happening there, these conflicts are mostly also because of a colonial history, isn't it? Like this, or is it too simple said in a way?
It's because of the resources. You know, when there is conflict, like in Iraq, what we saw is that it was easy to just come in, take the oil, and you pay a very small fee to your puppet government that is in place, but you get the resources out for nothing. It is the same thing happening in Congo, because if it was properly regulated, then they would have to pay much, much more. So like ReconAfrica, for example, they have 90% shares of the resources that they are taking out, whereas Namibia has got 10%. And during apartheid, the foreign mining companies, they had 95% of the shares, and the local South African government had 5% shares. So you can see it is still a very colonial practice, and when you have conflict, it is easier to get the resources out for literally nothing, because people are worried about saving lives and whatnot. But then again, we can see that Africa is not important, because even look at the coverage of the war or the conflict. So the reason why I'm here to speak to the G7 and to raise awareness is that we have to face out fossil fuels, because fossil fuels are really linked to conflict, especially on our side. Facing out for everyone, cancellation of the colonial debt. We don't owe anyone anything. Africa has given enough to the global north. We have bled enough. You know, we are generations after generations that are becoming guerrillas. They are making us to be like this. I can see people playing in a park, children having fun. Our children don't have that luxury. Our children in Congo have to dig up the cobalt so you can have the latest iPhone. Children in Ghana have to burn the recycled e-waste instead of Apple doing it themselves. Why don't these companies ever get the accountability? Coca-Cola, they have to take back the bottles, make a plan, recycle. And these are the bold actions that we need. If we are talking about a transition, we need to also look at how can we deal with the waste that the global north is producing that ends up in the global south. Which means that H&M, Zara, your old clothes, recycle them. You have the money. I mean, they pay the workers in Bangladesh $1. $1. I mean, sorry. Here you buy underwear for €2. You know, it's like, when are they going to stop exploiting our people? They want Africa without the African people. And this new so-called the next Africa's the next frontier for oil and gas, it clearly shows that they want to commit even a bigger genocide than what they have done in the past. Colonial powers have never been held accountable for the crimes that they have committed on our side. Here, we can see that the Germans had to pay reparations to the Jewish families. I am not saying that what the Germans did was good. I am not trying to compare, but unfortunately, this is what I can use as an example of the bad things that are happening to our people. I am in total sympathy with the communities and the people that had to go through these atrocities. But the German people also have to understand that by endorsing these deals, you are also endorsing the repetition of what those criminals, the Nazis, did to your own people here. And you are not proud of that history. But are you going to just keep quiet and let your governments do the same or repeat even worse? Because it has been happening already. We can talk about the conquerors, the Spanish conquerors, what they did in South America. I mean, it's atrocities. Look at what Belgium did in Congo. Look at what they did to Patrice Lumumba. They killed him, and then they his body was put in a drum with acid so it can disappear forever. But they never killed his...
I would like to know also a little bit more about the situation in Namibia with the colonialism and the Germans, because I heard that 70% of the country is in the ownership of German families.
I'm not sure about the percentage, and also because we have Afrikaners, the Dutch people, and also the German people. Yes, but they still own most of the land, and also most of the lodges, the businesses. Of course, there is a black empowerment thing that's going on, but it's totally corrupt. But definitely, no, there's still a very strong presence of German population in Namibia, and we call them Southwest Germans, Südwestdeutsch. That is what we call them, and that's also how I guess they identify themselves as. Namibia and the German government, the Namibian and the German government are talking about the reparations, but the problem with this negotiation is that the communities involved that are affected by this, the Nama, the Hereros and the Damaras, they were not part of the conversation. Just like with ReconAfrica, the government made a deal with the company without consulting the community or the country. So it's something that happens on a regular basis where government just decides that this is what's going to happen. And then sometimes it is too late to say no. And in this case, the United Nations approached the German government and told them that they cannot go through with this deal because it was not just justified, especially when looking at the people that are affected that were not part of this conversation. And for them, land is very important. It is very important. There is enough land in Namibia to be able to distribute it to the 2 million inhabitants, so not only the Hereros and the Namas, but literally for everyone. But now we have mining companies coming from all corners. People are being evicted from their lands because of mines coming in.
Of what coming in?
Mining activities that are coming in. So it's, we are still landless in that regard. And Germans still own, and they are still very privileged. And yes, they are extremely racist. Not all of them, because I do have very good friends that are Südwesters, and we have this conversation with them as well. For them, it's also very sensitive, of course, because it's their ancestors who committed the genocide. But it is a conversation that we are having amongst us, and it's a conversation that we should be having as two countries. How can we heal from it? So when we even see Germany asking for gas from Africa, for me personally, it is a betrayal, because they know what gas and oil does, especially in African nations. They already have a history of extreme violence in their own country and outside. And do they want to keep on saying I'm sorry, or do they just want total annihilation of the African people and the African cultures? What they are taking from us, they're also taking from you, because you also deserve to see what Africa looks like. You also get to deserve to live it and experience it together with us. What we want is we want to heal. We want to heal as a nation, as a continent, and we want to do it together in peace with our former colonizers, because we know that the people that did commit those atrocities are not the people that we are in touch with, and they are very human. But our governments, are they human, or are they just monsters that are still living off the dream that they had during the Berliner conference, when they cut up our countries, when they were calling us monkeys, baboons, uncivilized people. But we have our own ways of living. It doesn't make us less intelligent than you or the person from Iraq or the person from Kenya or the Maasai. We are people. So I don't know how this conversation can actually be facilitated in a very safe space where we can really talk about decolonizing institutions, decolonizing politics like the United Nations, the G7. How can we do that together? It's a very sensitive topic, I understand, but it's something that we need to talk about because it happened.
What do you mean with decolonizing the UN?
What I mean by that is that we still, what the G7 or the G20 countries say, it has more stance. They tend to listen to them more than the people that are being affected by conflicts, for example. Like, let's just talk about Ukraine, for example. There's been so much humanitarian aid going to the people of Ukraine. A lot of it. Even here right now in Germany, it's people are coming in from the Ukraine, they are being helped. But there are also African students who are studying in Ukraine. And right now, they can't get places in universities because it's only the Ukrainian students that have been prioritized. But they were studying in Ukraine. There are also refugees fleeing from this conflict. So decolonizing means listening to each other, finding solutions and implementing them, and not just talking. That is what I mean by decolonizing. We need more people that are living on the front line of the climate crisis to be in the negotiation tables with the people that are making the decisions. That is what we need. We need to learn from each other and not look down on each other. Because that is what is happening. You know? I mean, even when we look at the Second World War, that Hitler was looking down on other people, and that is why he chose to completely wipe them out. And it's the same with what Putin is doing, but it's also the same thing that happens on our side already a long time ago, hundreds years ago in Namibia, and South America even longer. So it's only by taking these voices into account that we can find solutions on how we as a planet can find a just transition that is fair for everyone, because we have the solutions. We have the solutions just like the people here. There is one thing that I have noticed coming back to DDR, and we had to walk a lot of stairs. They are not in the buildings that I was in, the old buildings. They don't have a lot of elevators. In East here in West Germany, you have them. So, but you are saving energy by not having an elevator. If you don't need it, walk the stairs. It's good for your health. You are saving energy. You don't have to get more gas out of Africa. I saw a lot of glass bottles. So many glass bottles here. Why aren't the companies in Africa doing glass bottles as well? I saw a lot of wind and solar parks here. Yes, it can be quite disturbing when you look at these massive things there, and I know that there is also a carbon footprint when it comes to that, and obviously that is also pushing the lithium mining, which is also destroying companies destroying people's lives in Africa, for example. But then again, I come back to this 90%, 10%. Or if you look at how the oil fund in Norway has benefited the people of Norway, and then you look at how the oil has benefited the people in Nigeria. I mean, in Ogoni lands, people, they can't farm anymore. The water is polluted, the fish, they can't eat it. And Shell is still continuing with new oil fields in the UK. In the UK, Jackdaw, the Scumbo. Let's talk about South Africa, doing seismics in the water, whale breeding ground. In Namibia, apparently they also found, I don't know how many millions of barrels of oil, billions. So it's scary. And
so they found oil in Namibia?
Apparently they did. I don't trust anyone from that industry. It is an industry that's responsible, that has blood on their hands. And it's where there's war, there are resources to be taken out, and people, they just don't want to pay for it. And it's easier to create a conflict because you get to sell your arms, you get to take out the resources for nothing. That is what it's about. So it's not about regarding people's lives, and it's the same with you people here on this side. You are not free. Us that are being oppressed, we are more free. You put on the music and you will see us dancing immediately, no matter how difficult the situations are that we come from. But here, even to get you dancing, you have to have like 5 beers before you get on the dance floor. So, yeah.
This has become worse. People don't feel free to dance. I think there has been a little bit better in the 60s.
Yes, definitely.
But in Germany there is a crazy discourse running about anti-colonialism, that many people think that this is not a topic for Germans. They say that this is just a hype, or it's just like here at the Documenta, now it's very anti-colonial, this Documenta this year. But people think that this is just something hype, something modern, and they really do not understand how strongly we are connected to colonialism, because they think we had just a little bit colonies in Namibia, and we had nothing to do with slave trade, what's not true. And this is strange, that it's not very understandable for the people here.
The one who controls the debt is the colonizer. And they still are colonizing. Today, you don't have kingdoms. Like that time it was Dritter Reich in Germany. The royal families of Spain, Portugal, the English family, they were always linked to, they were the ones leading the countries at the time when colonialism started. But today we have companies. Like ReconAfrica is a Canadian company. Mary Robinson, I'm not sure which country she comes from, but she is a former US convoy who said Africa has to develop its gas reserves because they are estimating over 146.6 trillion barrels of gas. 146 cubic meters, 146 trillion cubic meters of gas on the African continent. They are saying that we have to develop them. Is that what we want? You are saying we have to, so you are colonizing us. Siemens is German, right? What are they doing in Mexico? Green energy. They're taking people's land away so they can create so they can put all their windmills there, create clean energy for Germany. Siemens is doing it as well in the West Sahara. I know it's a country that we don't know about because it's a country that was a former Spanish colony, and after it got independent, Morocco took over. So it is still being colonized. And there is also a wall, just like the Berlin Wall, but it is the longest wall after the Chinese Wall, for example. These people are still being colonized. And companies like Siemens are very much invested in creating renewable energy to bring it to Germany. That is colonialism. That is colonialism because you're taking away people's livelihoods. You are taking away their ways of living, tradition, their water. You are doing it. So today when we talk about colonialism, let's talk about development, which is why one of my signs here, it says development equals neo-colonialism, because that is what it is. If you want to talk about decolonialization, then let's sit down together at a table and then we talk about how you can help me cancel our colonial debts, finance Africa, the global north, so they can have the chance to also have the children playing, educating themselves, building themselves. And that is what I've realized here. The youth, they've got so much time to invest within themselves, within their own personal creation. It's not about survival. Whereas with us, even as activists, there is a big divide. Because we are fighting for our survival right now. We are fighting for our water. It's being affected. You are fighting with us, but do you have to? I don't know. You have your own battles, we have our own. Here, you can get arrested, next day you're free. We can get arrested, you don't know if you'll see the next day. So it's very different, and these are discussions that we need to have. If you don't open up the discussions, if you don't talk about colonialism of what happened in the past, and then we see, compare it to what is happening today, it will be difficult for you to understand where we come from. So colonialism is very much happening. And also the G7 summit is a perfect example. How can we G7 leaders move forward? How? Now we're going to get the gas in Africa because we can't get it from Russia anymore. And this is how this war is affecting us. But we're not talking about it. We are not talking about just transition. We are not talking about creating a fair world for everyone. We're not talking about climate reparations or colonial reparations of what our people did. I mean, recently, Prince Philippe from Belgium, he just said, I'm sorry to Belgium. Sorry for what? Your missionaries, your armies, they killed people. They killed children. They made parents eat their own children.
In Congo.
In Congo.
Yeah.
I mean, how inhuman is that? You kill a child and then you serve the hand to the parents so you can silence them. Why are we not talking about these atrocities? We have stories to tell. Stories that are real, stories that are far removed from your reality, especially since the Second World War. So, it's like in Namibia, you totally feel it. I look at the Afrikaners and the Zuidwesters, the way they talk to the people, and it's like, you know, it's. So even I get questions like, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm Namibian. Oh, I thought you're from Zimbabwe. I'm like, why? No, because you're so outspoken. Oh, so you mean Namibians are not as intelligent as what I am? Or what are you saying? What are you trying to say? I mean, even here I had a very interesting conversation with a family in Leipzig. I invited myself, by the way, very African. And in the beginning you could see that they were hesitant and also trying to put you down in a way. And I made it clear to them that they're talking to the wrong black person. And it was an interesting challenge for me, especially because I know how racist people can be already from Namibia. But in the end, we spoke the same language because we had one thing in common, DDR. We could talk about what was happening there. They were telling me their stories. Olaf Berger, the songs we were singing. We were making fun of the whole system, and they're a generation older than me. But still, the exchange was so beautiful also for them. Also to show them that we are people. We are not just monkeys living underneath a tree, no.
But it's still crazy in a way that you have this pressure that you need to prove this, because you don't need to prove that you are people. It's
yes. Yes, that is true. I don't have to prove anything. Okay, Svek. I don't have to prove anything to the people, but it's part of the decolonization process. And for us, especially for us from MAPA countries, the most affected people and areas, or global south countries, we have that humility within us to accept that what has happened on this side was also out of the control of many people. But that's why we need to have conversations about what happened. And it is a part of education. We need to educate each other, share our cultures, celebrate life. That is what we need to do together. Even if I don't have to prove anything. But society has created this systematic division. Race, languages, then you've got tribes, then you've got sex, then you've got all these isms. Normal people, they retire when they are 60 or something. Politicians, they retire when they die. Ageism. So this fake privilege that was created because of colonialism, because of the divide and rule principle, is killing humanity. And we have to not only fight these companies and fight the systems, but also promote. And sometimes promoting also means talking to people that would never come to you, or that would always look at you like, who are you? And it's those people that we need to touch.
I would like to have another question. How would you distinct in a way the feminism which you have experienced in Namibia, in Africa, to the feminism which is happening in here, for example, in Germany or in white countries, in European countries?
I think Namibia is quite a liberal country in that regard compared to many African countries. We do have the system of patriarchy within our systems, but like in Africa and most traditional societies, it is the matriarchy that rules. The child belongs to the mother. Whereas in my culture, the Awambo people, the child belongs to the father. So it's a patriarchal system, but it's cultural. If we look at tradition, for example, before Christianity arrived, it was actually quite an equal, respectful society. The man had to do his work, the woman had her work. She did her chores, he did his. And but the man could also cook before the Christians came. And then Christianity came, and the man was put on a pedestal. So a lot of women in Namibia are still suppressed by their husbands, who do nothing, who just sit around. The children come and they're sitting at home while their husbands are drinking outside with little girls, with younger girls, teenagers in most cases. And these teenagers bring up children that are fatherless in the end. And then they go for married men because they think that the married man is more stable, he's more serious. But these men that also don't recognize the children in the end. So, but when it comes to LGBTQ rights, for example, Namibia is a bit more progressive than other African countries, like South Africa. Our queer people can walk around and look like they want. Not always, because there's a strong hate against them. We do advocate for the choice to choose what to do with your body, like with abortion, because abortion is illegal. We recently had heated debates about rape, where one of the MPs from the opposition party said that rape between a wife and a husband does not exist. But in fact it does. Rape is rape. Like I was giving the example earlier about Felicia, who was one of our trainees in one of the community gardens in one of the most poorest areas in Windhoek, the capital city. And she had a child. She had 2 children, a 3-year-old daughter and a 3-month-old son at the time. The husband did not want her to use family planning. He didn't want to use condoms, and she was afraid of falling pregnant again and having to suffer, because she literally lived from begging other people to put food on the table. And when the husband did come home from wherever it is that he was drinking, he would ask her where she got the food from, and she would get beaten for that, which is also a huge problem, domestic violence. And one day, because she refused to have sex with him, the husband decided that he's going to have sex with her, like it or not, and in the process strangled her to death as well in front of her children. And gender-based violence is a very big problem in Namibia. Very, very big problem. We had a huge protest last year, shut it all down, where there was even tear gas involved. It was the first time that I saw that in Namibia, to protest with tear gas. And it was at the time when literally every single week there was a woman dying because of a jealous boyfriend and other issues. And in most cases, what we have realized is, especially the women that die, they do go to the police, they put in a case, and then the man is released afterwards. And once they're released, they go and finish up the job. It's women that could have been saved, but the system did not protect these women. I mean, we also have our first surrogate babies, where we had to fight for them to come and live with their parents in Namibia. It is a male homosexual couple, and the surrogate mom is in South Africa, and they did not want this couple to to raise these girls. And they are very good parents, extremely good parents. But we managed. Now we are fighting for their citizenship, but we are still fighting for it. So there is a strong movement, and I think when it comes to gender-based violence, women's rights, we are definitely much more united than when we talk about climate activism. It's something that is really new in Namibia as well. But now compared to here, I think I'll go back again to, we don't have the same problems. We fight for our survival. Here, you have that space to develop yourself completely, to be who you are. I see these young children with so much confidence that know exactly what they want, that are open about their sexuality, whereas in other countries that you can't even, you have to hide if you are a lesbian. I mean, there was a young girl from Riobot, it's like 2 hours away from Windhoek. She was gang raped, I think by more than 10 guys, gang raped, because they did not want to accept her being a lesbian. And what they said is, you did not have sex with the right man, now we're going to show you. She committed suicide. So fighting the fossil fuel industry is something that's very difficult for us as activists, especially in the global south, where there's a lot of injustice happening towards people. And we wrote a lot of petitions, even one to Müller, because Germany has invested over 70 million euros already within the CASA project. Unfortunately, I don't know what...
CASA project?
Yeah, CASA. It is... CASA, it is the different parks that are around the Okavango region. I know it's got a specific name, but I don't have it now. Mm-hmm. So it's KAZA. Mm-hmm. So they have invested already 70 million euros in this project. So we asked the German government to please take stance, because their investment is now being thrown away. Until today, we heard nothing. We also wrote a petition to the US government, because the Okavango Delta and the Okavango Basin itself, the areas, it is protected by the US Congress, and no one is saying anything. So it's and also now with the new gas rush, oil rush for African resources, it is very difficult for us as activists to actually do anything. I mean, I tried the legal strategy where I got in touch with a lawyer, actually 2 law firms, and when it was time for action, they're like, no, we work for the company as well. So they were just taking information. Political parties, politicians, a lot of people are working with this company. And it's like that everywhere globally. Look at Shell. They were involved in the murder of Ken Saro-Wiwa. The Niger Delta, no accountability. Shell was one of the biggest contributors to apartheid in Namibia and South Africa. There was this huge protest in the 80s to boycott Shell because of the role that they were playing in the apartheid regime in South Africa. To this day, no accountability. And they are still continuing. And I mean, Shell was on a red carpet at COP26. What was a man like that doing in a conference of that nature? So because of that, I have now signed up to the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, mm-hmm. which is an initiative that was started 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think 63 cities signed up to it. I think over 2,000 scientists signed up to it. So it's different organizations that have signed up to it, the Prime Minister of Vanuatu as well. So it's different people, different organizations, different voices coming together to build this global resistance against the fossil fuel industry. And in a way, it is to protect people like me, but also to create a voice that's big enough that we can say enough is enough. One of the recommendations from Stockholm Plus 50 now, the UNEP has strongly recommended that we start phasing out fossil fuels. That they even said it is our moral obligation for the sake of humanity. Blah, 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 yes, but it's the first UN summit that has put that very strongly on the list, phasing out. So it's a very, very, very important statement. So the work that we are doing as a collective is being felt, and it's being heard on different levels, because you have legal entities, legal firms, you have politicians. So it's coming from everywhere. And that's why I'm asking everyone to please Google this up. Hoping it's visible.
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
So people can just sign up, ask your cities to sign up, ask your political parties, your groups that you work in to sign up as groups, sign as individuals. So together we can find a way of how we can heal, how we can get away from this cancer that is destroying the planet, so a few people can continue harvesting money that is supposed to go into the people. Let's just talk about fossil fuel subsidies, for example. Your governments are paying subsidies to these companies. There's so much homelessness in Germany. There's no work in Germany. Why isn't that money being invested in the people? Instead of these companies that are killing people that have blood on their hands on the other side of the ocean. And the people here are also suffering. We need to come together, not as global north or global south, but as humanity.
As humans.
As humans, yes, for the sake of humanity, definitely.
And this project is, you said you choose the legal way because it's always problematic, of course, as you know, to have this legal way, but I think I accept and I understand that this can be maybe a chance to change, to fade out from fossil fuels.
We need to try everything.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to work.
Yeah. We cannot rely on a revolution which doesn't seem to happen.
It's Russia is cutting off. Africa is the next frontier. Many innocent lives are going to be lost because of the addiction to fossil fuels.
Thank you very much, Ina.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was great.
Thank you.